far as our numbers. When last I spoke to you, we had 9,000 less unexcused absences than we had a year ago. That was, I believe, at Christmas time. Since then, we enjoyed a large flu epidemic in January and early February, even with increased number of absences. Currently, last year's unexcused absences numbered 28,876 by the 4th of March. This year we have 20,055. So we are still close to 9,000 less unexcused absences. Let me make clear what I mean by unexcused absences. I'm not talking necessarily that there are almost 9,000 children who have unexcused absences. I'm talking about those are days of unexcused absences, close to 9,000. One student may accumulate 10 unexcused absences on his own, or any number of unexcused, but the total number of days is close to 9,000. I've also been asked whether or not the district has put things in place. Are we completely dependent on the cities to do this for us? Have we been doing things on our own? Of course we've been doing things on our own. We met last summer as soon as the problem became evident. We met last summer with a committee of assistant principals at both campuses. What we did was take a close look at our own systems, our own structures and processes that we had in place, tightened some of them, and mostly made sure that they were consistently followed, that no matter where, no matter what campus, there was a consistent process in place that was following each one of those. Okay, now that process was in place when school opened this year on August 27th. From August 27th until the day the first legislation was passed in Euless, which was September 23rd, and then this city acted in October. During those first couple of months, I'm sorry, what was the date in Bedford? September. Okay, great. During that first month, when our processes were in place, there was almost no difference in attendance from the year before. There was about 100 kids difference, and that's it, during the time we opened school and the time the cities put legislation in place. From that time on, that number has quickly grown into the thousands. Do I think that the daytime curfew has had an effect? Absolutely, it has had an effect. It is a deterrent. Now, not only do we have the figures, now we have anecdotal evidence from students themselves who will say, we just got tired of dodging police officers during the day. We got tired of being afraid that we would round the corner and there would be a police officer waiting for us, and we knew we were supposed to be in school anyway. And so we just got tired of taking the risk that we might get in trouble, and so we came back to school. I absolutely believe that this has had the largest impact on our kids. Let's see, anything else I wanted to clarify for you? We have put policy changes in place, but like I said, they made very little difference until the cities then acted. Questions?
Mr. Savage had a question. I don't know if you're the person to answer it or someone else, or if you're going to have to go get the information.
He's here. He is signed up to speak at a later session, and that is...
So we may have to ask him then. But go ahead, Roy.
That's Dr. Hearn, who is our truant officer, and he can tell you exactly how many people have been prosecuted this year.
I got another one.
Okay.
The 10-day rule. We keep hearing about the 10-day rule, or 10 absentee rule.
Right.
That gives them a head start for 10 absences.
Right.
I understand, but some of my research, I understood that they can drop that to 3 months, for 3 days for in 3 months. Mm-hmm. Why do we use the longer period of time, or why do you guys use the longer period of time as opposed to the shorter period?
I'm not familiar with what you're referring to
Well, I'm
be honest
referring
with
to
you.
that they said you got
No, I know about the 10 days.
and
I
you're
don't
out.
know about dropping
10
it to a
absences.
lower number.
And that's over a
Oh,
6-month
for a
period.
truancy citation?
If you want to explain it, sir, go ahead and step up and.
Oh, yeah, please do.
give us your
This is
name.
Mike Harris, who's the principal at Trinity High School.
Oh, go ahead.
He's also a Bedford resident.
And I forgot to tell y'all, please give us your name and address when you come up. I forgot to ask, that's my fault, so, but.
My name is Mike Harris, 3521 Sweetwood Street here in Bedford. What you're referring to, Mr. Savage and Mr. Cason, part of the question you asked a minute ago also about why we don't just ticket at school. By state law, in order to issue a truancy citation, for our truant officers to issue a truancy citation, a student has to have missed 3 or more days within a 3-month period or 10 or more days within a 6-month period. All right, and there's some very quick turnaround times that are required within that. And now I'm kind of making stuff up, but it's something along the lines of after that third absence within 3 months, the citation has to be written within 5 days. And there's some very strict restrictions for how a truancy citation can be issued, and that's by state law. So your question about why we use both, whichever we can get a citation through our truancy office first. It doesn't have to just be the 10-day. The problem is if a student misses school today, that student has 72 hours in which to excuse that absence, to bring a note from a parent or a doctor or so forth. So because it takes 72 hours before an absence is completely unexcused, unless the parent just tells us they're truant, we have to wait that 72 hours before we can now begin acting. So because of the time constraints of the way the state laws are written, it's very difficult to jump through all those hoops in the time constraints that are put upon us. So the 10 days within 6 months is an easier time constraints to meet than the 3-day. But if we can meet it for the 3-day, absolutely we do that as well. But so part of your question earlier, Mr. Cason, about why we do issue citations. We have truancy officers that do issue citations, and those do come to the courts as well. A street patrol officer cannot issue a truancy citation because he doesn't know if that's the 3rd absence within 3 months or if that's the 10th absence within 6 months, and if it's within the certain time constraint, all that kind of stuff. So that's why we had approached the cities with the idea of tying it to the curfew that already exists. There's an evening curfew, tie it to that and make a daytime curfew, because then that does give the patrol officer an opportunity to have an immediate consequence, where through the state law procedures with truancy, it's anything but an immediate consequence for the truancy.
Yeah. I have to wonder, it was Mr. Harris?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harris, I have to wonder, though, even in the circumstance of a child that is absent and perceived to be truant, that gets stopped by a police officer and issued a citation, then is able to come back and prove, look, it's excused, and gets an excuse, you know, to defend himself against that citation. And then we have situations where invalid or you know, illegitimate cases are going before the judge, taking up time in the court system, and then the situation, Dr. Tribble, that you pointed to with the anecdotal evidence coming from the students and their impressions and feelings, and I sit here and I think, conversely, the people that, the homeschoolers and private schoolers and others that are expressing concern about this curfew affecting them in that very way, they're having those same feelings, except they're on the other side of that coin. And there's a lot more of them than there are the truant students that are actually snared or would have been snared. And
See, I disagree with that. I disagree very much with that.
What part do you disagree with?
That there are more people being affected on the homeschool side than there are being deterred from being absent. We deal in our district with 20,000 students. The homeschool rolls for Bedford, according to our PEIMS, are in the double